Hello, everybody. My name is Graham Elwood, and you are watching Boom, the Political Vigilante. Look at it. Look at it. Boom, 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 boom. Making Gotham great again. So one of the things we do on this show is we point out how the media either lies or shades the truth or is misrepresented. So this is an op-ed piece that is in the Miami Herald. I subscribe to the Miami Herald online because they have done some of the best work on Epstein over the last several years. 3 years now we're coming up on. So I subscribe to them. But this is an op-ed piece. But I'm going to dig into this the two writers for the op-ed piece and show you they work for a big think tank. And just this is how they get the propaganda machine out there. So there's a lot of talk about student debt forgiveness. Now, the student debt forgiveness that Joe Biden is introducing is like 10 grand. It's not enough. And as I've said to you on this show, I've pointed out to you that 85% of all student debt is federally backed, right? So it's not even an issue of we need to find the tax dollars to pay for it. They literally just say, you don't have to pay this anymore. So just know that going in. Biden's plan to forgive student debt loans will be unforgiving for U.S. taxpayers. Opinion. Rachel Gressler and Lindsey Burke. We're going to get into where they work in a second. It rhymes with Heritage Foundation. So this is, and I've done another story on this. This is the angle that they're taking. It's bad for the U.S. taxpayer. I did another story on this. That's not true. It's not going to increase your taxes because they're just forgiving the debt. Right? And whenever they come up with this, then the government needs these tax dollars to pay for everything else. No, it doesn't. We've shown you on MMT, they don't. They can just print it, which is what they've been doing. They print all this money for all these wars. They print money for Wall Street bailouts. Why can't they print money for good things? Why can't we just have free college like they've had in countries in Western Europe for decades? Why can't we just have free healthcare like they've had in Europe for 70 years? But when think tanks that are funded by big corporations put this out there, this is just an excerpt from this ridiculous op-ed piece. Biden's plan to transfer $360 billion worth of individual student loan debts to taxpayers. That's not true. That is not what he's doing. He's not transferring this to taxpayers. It is not going to show up on your tax bill next year. That is not true. It's not true. Not true. First line out of the thing, not true. Without their consent is closer to theft than forgiveness. Oh my God. You want to bring up consent? Okay. Gee, where was my consent on the never-ending budget money sent to war? Did you give consent? Any of the viewers here in the comment section, were you asked, did you give your consent for all this money we've just sent to Ukraine? How many of you gave consent to the $3.5 trillion that was wasted in 20 years in Afghanistan that replaced the Taliban with the Taliban? Do you remember giving your consent? See, I don't. I didn't vote for any of these parasites. I didn't vote. When Wall Street was given bailouts during the 2008 housing crisis, I don't remember ever giving my consent for that. When Bush and Obama let the banks steal my home and 6 million other Americans' homes, and they're saying now that number might even be low. It might be closer to 10 million, but at least 6 million foreclosures happened during the last housing crisis. Do you remember giving your consent for that? Do you remember giving your consent for the first CARES Act, the single greatest upward transference of wealth ever? That was when Trump was president. But the Democrats and the Republicans did it together. Do you remember giving consent for that? Gee, I don't. I don't remember that. I don't remember giving consent to endless pipelines. I don't remember giving consent to the war in Yemen. I never was asked. I never gave consent to the war in Yemen. I never gave consent to the war in Syria. When has my consent ever been asked for anything. When is the American taxpayers consent? When have we ever been asked? Oh, you get your consent is at the ballot box. No, it's not, because all politicians in both parties are bought and paid for by the banks, by Wall Street, by the military industrial complex, by big pharma, by big tech. When was my consent ever given? And then forgiveness? Working class Americans without college degrees, people who worked their way through school without loans, and those who worked hard to pay off their loans will be the ones paying for other student loan forgiveness. No, no, and no. Again, forgiving a federally backed loan is not increasing anyone's taxes. Gee, these women seem like they're smart. Did they just not know this? Or are they deliberately told or paid to be liars? Well, let's find out who they are. What do we say on the show? Follow the money, connect the dots, get the truth. Rachel Geiser is a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation, Herman Center for Federal Budget. Lindsay Burke is director of Heritage Centers for Education Policy. The Heritage Foundation is a think tank that drafts laws, for starters. I just went to Wikipedia. And again, I'm not some huge advocate of Wikipedia, but the thing, and Lee Camp and I always say this on Government Secrets, when Wikipedia says something and Wikipedia hides and covers and doesn't mention stuff, so when they mention something, that's basically the corporate media giving a stamp of approval of what it is. The Heritage Foundation rejects scientific consensus on climate change. These are the reference numbers. The Heritage Foundation is one of the many climate change denial organizations that have been funded by ExxonMobil. That's the Heritage Foundation. So that's one of the things they do. They also do fun stuff like voter suppression. They ran an ad in 2021 in Arizona, I believe, saying the Democrats are going to just let illegals run across the border, which is not what they're going to do. And again, I don't like the Democratic Party either, but this is one of these classic keeping the duopoly going. Funded by ExxonMobil. I mean, I started digging on where they get their funding from. It's hilarious. Remember the Affordable Care Act? Well, the health insurance mandate of 2010, Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, is an idea hatched in 1989 by Stuart Butler at Heritage in a publication titled Assuring Affordable Healthcare for All Americans. This is in Wikipedia. Because remember when if you were like me, I voted for Obama, thought, oh, he's going to finally give us free healthcare. And we were told, oh, the Republicans are gumming it up. No, the Democrats helped make Obamacare horrible because it was drafted. It was drafted. And here's just the bills that they are involved in drafting, or they put some aspect in laws. This is just from 2021. The Save Democracy Act, the For the People Act, the Align Act, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, For the People Act, Combating Racist Training in the Military Act. They have a say in a lot of these. There's more of them. I mean, it's a whole separate segment to go through each one of these, but look at them. John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement, Equality Act, For the People Act, Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act. They'll put little things in there. That's how what you're like, why is this bill so complicated? We're just trying to do whatever. Protect this thing or that thing. Why is it 500 pages long? Why is there all this extra crap on it? Because of these think tanks that literally draft language for these bills. Look at all of them. Protecting the right to keep and bear. It's a conservative think tank. The Heritage Foundation is very, very conservative. This is what they do. They draft legislation. This is what these think tanks do. That's why it's like, I was never given consent. Nobody asked for my consent if this is okay, that this think tank or any of them. APAC, the military. I mean, I've shown you all of the money that just in the 2020 election, the defense industry spent $49 million. They gave $2.7 million to Trump and $3.1 million to Biden. I wasn't consented on that. When we talk about take the money out of politics, this is what we're talking about. Like in Mike Gravel's book, We should all just get to vote for bills that are in simple English, that are like 500 words or less, in plain English, not lawyer speak. This is what this bill is going to introduce. We're going to allocate this amount of money to do this, and let Americans vote for it online using blockchain technology that's secured. So you can't cheat. You can't double it. You can't hack it, right? It's open source technology. Gravel put that in his book. Because if we do that, then the actual people, we have a say. We have no say. You think you vote for a politician that works for one of these two corrupt parties, and then a bill gets drafted and and then they always blame each other party. No, it's the lobbyists that draft this. They're all bought and paid for. It's just a matter of who and how much money. That's it. Student debt forgiveness will help a lot of people, but not according to the Heritage Foundation. Two corrupt women working for the Heritage Foundation. I wonder what part of hell, like what did the devil promise you to do this? And the thing is, they just put these two women work, are at the Heritage. They just put it at the very end. It's like they do any sort of, I guess they call it a byline. Like if I wrote an op-ed piece and it was in the Miami Herald, they'd say Graham Elwood is an American comedian who, hosts the show Political Vigilante and Government Secrets, right? They would just give my background or whatever. And they know most people reading that article are not going to go look up the Heritage Foundation. They're not going to go to Wikipedia and opensecrets.org and find out who they give their money to and what bills they support. They're not going to dig through this. They know you're not, most people aren't going to do that. It's a very, very corrupt system. It's a very corrupt system. And both parties are nonsense. And if you think one party is better than the other, you've been lied to. I know. I used to think that. I used to think the Democrats were not great, but they were better than the Republicans. No, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not. And if you were raised to think the Republicans are a little bit better than the Democrats, no, they're not. No, they're not. We were all lied to, folks. We're in class warfare. It's not red versus blue. We are in class warfare. And this is why. That is the ruling class. The Heritage Foundation is funded by wealthy people. ExxonMobil. The ruling elites have rigged the whole system. Everybody's bought and paid for. You have no say in your government. This is not a democracy. It's a kleptocracy run by oligarchs. You have no say in your government. None of us gave consent for all of this. None of us. The richest country in the history of the world should have everything. We should have the best schools. We should have free college. We should have free healthcare. We should have all this stuff. I'd gladly pay taxes if that's what I got in return, but we're a monetary sovereign. We have the Federal Reserve, which is a corrupt banking cartel. We're heading into another recession. Thank you, capitalism. So you guys come here because this is what we're going to give you, the truth. And I'm focusing a lot on financial truth because I was screwed over in 2010 by both parties. Both parties screwed me over and I lost my home as a result of it. And other people that own two homes, they can just start leaning one way or another because it's good for clicks. Oh boy. Oh, it's like that line in Apocalypse Now. Boy, the shit started stacking up so high you needed wings to stay above it. Not a lot of authentic people in indie media. There's a lot of people chasing clicks. My views have cost me clicks, but it's still the truth, so I'm going to say it. But go chase the clicks. Get a Let's Go Brandon hat. I'm sure the Heritage Foundation has them. Follow the money, connect the dots, get the truth, and shave your knuckles for justice.